12 uncomfortable truths for real change. The hard truths that set you free. Change isn't found in comfort. It's forged in the fire of uncomfortable truths, truths that most people spend their lives avoiding. We tell ourselves that happiness will come when circumstances improve, that failure is something to fear, and that control over everything will bring peace. But what if the opposite were true? The philosophy of Stoicism doesn't sugarcoat life. It forces us to face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. The obstacles you avoid, they are your greatest teachers. The struggles you resist, they hold the key to your growth. Real transformation begins the moment you stop running from the truth and start embracing it. Are you ready to confront the uncomfortable truths that will set you free? 1. Perception shapes reality. Our perception is the foundation upon which our reality is built. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously stated, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. This fundamental idea highlights how events in life are inherently neutral. It is our interpretation that assigns them meaning. What one person sees as a catastrophe, another may see as an opportunity. A failure in business could be viewed as an embarrassment or as a lesson that paves the way for future success. A harsh critique from a peer could be perceived as an insult or as constructive feedback for growth. The power of perception lies in our ability to reshape our experiences, not by changing external circumstances, but by altering our internal narrative. Stoicism teaches that by mastering our perception, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Many of life's hardships are exacerbated by our emotional reactions rather than the events themselves. If we assume that every setback is a personal attack or a sign of our inadequacy, we create anxiety and despair. However, if we reframe those same setbacks as stepping stones to wisdom, we build resilience and strength. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, reminds us that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is a call to transform obstacles into advantages by shifting our perspective. Moreover, perception determines how we experience emotions. Anger, frustration, and disappointment often arise when we expect life to conform to our desires. When reality deviates from these expectations, we feel wronged. However, by recognizing that our expectations are simply internal constructs rather than universal truths, we can choose a more rational response. Instead of lamenting a delayed flight, for instance, we can see it as an opportunity to read, reflect, or simply practice patience. Instead of resenting criticism, we can extract valuable insights and improve ourselves. By exercising control over perception, we gain power over our lives. This does not mean denying reality or suppressing emotions, but rather choosing a perspective that serves us rather than enslaves us. Life will always present difficulties, but how we interpret them determines whether we suffer or grow. The Stoic path is one of mental discipline, where we continuously refine our perception to align with reason, resilience, and wisdom. When we master our minds, we master our reality. 2. Comparison and control are draining. Comparison and the illusion of control are among the greatest thieves of inner peace. In Stoicism, the key to tranquility lies in focusing solely on what is within our power and disregarding what is not. Yet, modern life constantly tempts us to compare ourselves to others, measuring our success, happiness, and worth against external markers that are beyond our control. Whether it is wealth, status, relationships, or recognition, the moment we define ourselves based on these fluctuating variables, we become slaves to them. If we perceive someone else's success as an indictment of our own failure, we invite envy and dissatisfaction into our lives. If we obsess over gaining the approval of others, we relinquish our autonomy and live in perpetual anxiety. But the Stoic mindset reminds us that true contentment is an internal matter, independent of external validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not the external events that trouble us, but our judgment about them." Similarly, Comparing ourselves to others is not the issue. It is the meaning we assign to those comparisons that either strengthens or weakens us. This ties directly into the illusion of control. So much of human frustration stems from the desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable. Other people's opinions, societal changes, the passage of time, or even the outcome of our own actions. But Stoicism teaches that the only thing we can control is our perception and response. By fixating on external forces, we deplete our mental energy and invite unnecessary suffering. The more we seek control over what is not ours to command, the more we lose control over ourselves. This does not mean we should be passive. Rather, we should focus our energy where it truly matters: our thoughts, decisions, and actions. The moment we release the need to control everything is the moment we gain true freedom. Comparison and control are draining because they divert our attention from the present moment and pull us into a cycle of endless striving. But when we shift our perspective, we reclaim our power, allowing us to live with clarity, purpose, and peace. 3. Time is fleeting. Use it wisely. Time is the most precious resource we have, yet it is the one we squander most thoughtlessly. The Stoics repeatedly emphasize the fleeting nature of time, urging us to use it wisely rather than waste it on trivialities, distractions, or pursuits that do not serve our higher purpose. Seneca, in On the Shortness of Life, warned that people act as if they have an abundance of time, procrastinating on what truly matters while spending their days consumed by external concerns, status, wealth, and the opinions of others. This ties directly into the Stoic lesson that comparison and the illusion of control drain us. The more time we spend measuring ourselves against others or trying to manipulate outcomes beyond our reach, the less time we have for meaningful pursuits, self-improvement, virtue, and the cultivation of inner peace. Instead of being present in our own lives, we become spectators in someone else's, chasing shadows rather than embracing reality. A Stoic recognizes that every moment wasted on envy, regret, or seeking control over the uncontrollable is a moment lost forever. Time, unlike money or possessions, cannot be regained once spent. This is why the wise focus on what truly matters, living virtuously, fulfilling their duties, and being fully engaged in the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not meant to invoke fear, but to serve as a reminder that life is uncertain, and the only way to honor it is to live with intention. Instead of drifting through life, distracted by comparisons or consumed by petty concerns, we must direct our attention toward what we can control: our choices, our values, and how we respond to the time we have left. True wisdom lies in realizing that time is not something to be managed, delayed, or hoarded. It is to be used wisely, right now, before it slips away. 4. Overthinking is a trap. Overthinking is one of the greatest traps of the mind, an enemy of action and a thief of time. The Stoics understood that excessive rumination, especially on things outside our control, leads to paralysis rather than clarity. When we overanalyze decisions, dwell on past mistakes, or obsess over the future, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This insight reveals the folly of overthinking. It is an illusion of control. We believe that by thinking more, we can change external circumstances, but in reality, we only drain ourselves of the energy needed to act. This directly connects to the idea that comparison and control are draining. Overthinking is just another way of trying to exert control over the uncontrollable, whether it be the past, the opinions of others, or uncertain outcomes. Overthinking is also a misuse of time, which the Stoics warned against. Time is fleeting, and every moment lost in excessive contemplation is a moment we cannot reclaim. Instead of getting lost in endless deliberation, the Stoic approach is to focus on action guided by reason. Seneca wrote, We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Much of what we agonize over, what could go wrong, how others perceive us, or whether we've made the perfect choice, exists only in our minds. Reality is often far simpler and less terrifying than we make it. The antidote to overthinking is not more thought, but clarity through action. Instead of seeking absolute certainty, we should make the best decision we can with the information available and move forward. By doing so, we free ourselves from the mental chains of hesitation and anxiety. The present moment is where life happens, and overthinking only pulls us away from it. 5. Forgiveness is self-liberation. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not about excusing wrongdoing, but about freeing ourselves from the chains of resentment and anger. When we hold on to grudges, we allow others to control our emotional state, which is a direct violation of Stoic principles. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This wisdom teaches that harboring bitterness only ties us to the very thing we despise. Forgiveness is self-liberation because it releases us from unnecessary suffering, an act of reclaiming our inner peace. Just as overthinking is a trap that keeps us stuck in mental turmoil, refusing to forgive keeps us anchored in the past, wasting precious time that could be used for growth and purpose. Time is fleeting, and every moment spent nurturing resentment is a moment stolen from our own well-being. The Stoics emphasize focusing only on what we can control, and we cannot control the actions of others, only our response to them. Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. By forgiving, we refuse to grant others power over our emotions. This does not mean allowing harm to continue or being naive. Rather, it means accepting reality, learning from the experience, and moving forward without carrying unnecessary emotional burdens. Just as overthinking paralyzes us with indecision, holding on to anger drains us of mental clarity and strength. A mind free of resentment is a mind unburdened, capable of focusing on what truly matters. Forgiveness is also tied to perception shaping reality. If we perceive an offense as unbearable, we suffer greatly. But if we view it as a lesson or an insignificant event in the grand scheme of life, we maintain our tranquility. The choice is always ours. Through forgiveness, we embody the Stoic ideal of mastering our own minds rather than being slaves to our emotions. In letting go, we do not free the other person, we free ourselves. 6. Detachment brings freedom. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, is not about indifference or apathy, but about freeing ourselves from the illusions of control and the weight of external outcomes. True freedom lies in understanding that our peace is not tied to possessions, status, or the opinions of others, but to our ability to govern our own minds. The Stoics taught that attachment to transient things leads to suffering because everything external is subject to change. Epictetus reminds us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When we become too invested in external things, whether material wealth, relationships, or even our own expectations, we set ourselves up for disappointment and distress. Detachment allows us to remain steady in the face of life's uncertainties, giving us the freedom to act with wisdom rather than be ruled by fear, desire, or resentment. This principle ties closely to forgiveness as self-liberation. When we detach from the expectation that others must behave a certain way or make amends for their wrongs, we free ourselves from the burden of bitterness. Holding grudges or demanding justice for every slight keeps us emotionally chained to past events. But when we recognize that others' actions are beyond our control and that our true power lies in our response, we release ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Similarly, detachment liberates us from overthinking. Obsessing over the past or fearing the future traps us in endless cycles of anxiety. When we detach from the need for certainty and perfection, we cultivate presence and clarity. Time is fleeting, and the more we cling to illusions of permanence, the more we waste it. When we learn to detach from things that do not serve our inner peace, we can fully engage in life without being owned by it. Detachment does not mean withdrawal, but rather a deep understanding that joy, peace, and fulfillment come from within, not from circumstances. The Stoic who masters detachment walks through life with true freedom, embracing whatever comes with equanimity, never enslaved by fear or loss. 7. Non-judgment reduces emotional turmoil. Non-judgment is a powerful Stoic practice that reduces emotional turmoil by allowing us to see reality as it is, rather than filtering it through the lens of personal bias, expectations, or misplaced values. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, reminds us that if you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it. The world is neither inherently good nor bad. Events happen, people act, and circumstances shift. It is our interpretation of these things that generates suffering. When we judge something as unfair, unbearable, or catastrophic, we create unnecessary pain. But if we choose to suspend judgment and accept reality as it unfolds, we free ourselves from emotional volatility. This principle is deeply connected to detachment, as emotional turmoil often arises from attachment to rigid expectations about how life should be. When we detach from the idea that events must align with our desires, we cultivate the ability to respond with calmness rather than react with frustration or distress. Non-judgment allows us to navigate life with equanimity, avoiding the emotional highs and lows that come with labeling experiences as either fortunate or unfortunate. Instead, we can adopt the Stoic perspective that every experience, pleasant or painful, offers an opportunity for growth and resilience. Forgiveness also becomes more natural when we practice non-judgment. Rather than labeling someone's actions as malicious or unforgivable, we can recognize that people act according to their own perspectives, limitations, and struggles. By refraining from moral condemnation, we free ourselves from resentment and bitterness, reinforcing the idea that forgiveness is ultimately self-liberation. Overthinking, too, is often fueled by judgment, whether it's worrying about the past, fearing the future, or second-guessing our choices. By embracing non-judgment, we reduce the mental noise that leads to anxiety and indecision. Similarly, time is fleeting, and the more we waste it on negative judgments of ourselves, others, or circumstances, the less we truly live. The Stoic who cultivates non-judgment is not passive, but deeply present, moving through life with clarity, inner peace, and emotional resilience. 8. Happiness is a choice, not a destination. Happiness, in the Stoic sense, is not something to be pursued in the external world, but something cultivated within. It is not a destination we arrive at once we achieve certain milestones, wealth, status, recognition, but a state of mind that we choose daily, regardless of circumstances. As Epictetus taught, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. The moment we tie our happiness to external conditions, other people's approval, material success, or the absence of hardship, we hand over our inner peace to forces beyond our control. True happiness, then, is an internal choice, rooted in how we perceive life and respond to its inevitable difficulties. This aligns with the Stoic idea that perception shapes reality. If we view happiness as something that exists only in the future, when we have the perfect job, relationship, or financial security, we fall into the trap of postponing joy indefinitely. But if we accept that happiness is found in the present, in our attitude toward life, we free ourselves from this illusion. Practicing gratitude, focusing on virtue, and embracing what is rather than yearning for what could be allows us to experience contentment now, rather than someday. Non-judgment also plays a key role in happiness. Much of our suffering comes from labeling events as unfair or inadequate, rather than simply accepting them as they are. By removing the need for things to conform to our expectations, we reduce emotional turmoil and creates space for tranquility. This ties into detachment, the ability to let go of things that do not serve our inner peace. When we detach from rigid desires and external validation, we become resilient in the face of life's unpredictability. Happiness is not about avoiding pain or discomfort, but about mastering our response to it. Time is fleeting, and wasting it on resentment, regret, or overthinking only robs us of the present moment. If we understand that happiness is an internal practice, not a destination to reach, we empower ourselves to live fully, free from the illusion that something outside of us holds the key to our well-being. 9. Expectations lead to discontent. Expectations are one of the greatest sources of human suffering, and Stoicism teaches us that clinging to them inevitably leads to discontent. When we expect life to unfold in a certain way, people to treat us fairly, plans to go smoothly, or success to come easily, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The world is indifferent to our desires, and reality does not bend to our expectations. This is why Epictetus reminds us, it is not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them. When we impose rigid expectations on life, we distort our perception, mistaking what we wish to happen for what should happen. The Stoic approach is to replace expectations with acceptance, an understanding that events will unfold as they must, and our role is to respond with reason and resilience. This perspective aligns closely with the idea that happiness is a choice, not a destination. If we believe our happiness depends on life meeting our expectations, we will always be chasing something elusive. But if we detach from these expectations and embrace what comes with equanimity, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means acknowledging that we do not control the outcomes, only our response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By surrendering our need for the world to conform to our desires, we gain the freedom to find peace in any situation. Moreover, expectations often lead to resentment in our relationships. We assume others will act a certain way, reciprocate our kindness, or understand us perfectly. When they do not, we feel slighted or betrayed. But non-judgment reduces this turmoil. Rather than expecting others to behave according to our standards, we accept them as they are. Similarly, overthinking traps us in endless cycles of what should have been instead of allowing us to focus on the present reality. Time is fleeting, and spending it lamenting unmet expectations robs us of the present moment. The Stoic way is to replace expectation with adaptability, to meet life as it is rather than how we demand it to be. By doing so, we cultivate true resilience, contentment, and inner freedom. 10. Trust the process and let go of control. Trusting the process and letting go of control is a fundamental Stoic principle that aligns with the idea that expectations lead to discontent. When we attempt to control every aspect of our lives, we set ourselves up for frustration and suffering. The universe operates according to its own logic, indifferent to our personal desires and plans. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, nature gives and takes away. Anyone with sense and humility will tell her, give what you will, take what you will. This does not mean we should be passive or complacent. On the contrary, Stoicism teaches that we must act with wisdom and effort. However, we must also accept that the outcomes are not in our hands. It is our job to plant the seeds, but we cannot dictate when or how they will grow. This aligns with the idea that happiness is a choice, not a destination. If we believe that our happiness depends on controlling every detail of our future, we will always be anxious and dissatisfied. Instead, Stoicism urges us to embrace uncertainty and focus on the present moment. Overthinking the what-ifs only traps us in fear and hesitation. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Letting go of control liberates us from unnecessary mental burdens and allows us to focus on what truly matters: our own thoughts, actions, and virtues. Moreover, letting go of control is an act of self-liberation, much like forgiveness. Holding on to resentment is an attempt to rewrite the past, to make reality conform to our expectations of fairness. But by releasing our grip on the illusion of control, we free ourselves from the pain of unmet expectations and allow life to flow naturally. Detachment from control is not about giving up. It is about recognizing that true strength lies in adapting, not resisting. Just as a river carves its path by yielding to obstacles rather than fighting them, we too must trust the process and embrace the unfolding of life without fear. 11. Not every battle is worth fighting. The Stoics understood that not every battle is worth fighting, as engaging in unnecessary conflict drains our energy, disrupts our peace, and distracts us from what truly matters. Life is full of potential battles, arguments, disagreements, and personal offenses, but wisdom lies in discerning which are worthy of our time and which are better left alone. Epictetus taught, "If someone is speaking ill of you, do not defend yourself against their accusations, but reply, 'You obviously don't know me very well, or else you would have mentioned more.'" This reflects the Stoic belief that our peace is not determined by others' opinions or external circumstances. Fighting every battle, especially those rooted in ego or pride, only entangles us in emotional turmoil and wastes the limited time we have. Instead, we must ask ourselves whether engaging in a particular struggle serves our higher values, or if it is simply an attempt to satisfy the ego. This principle aligns with the Stoic teaching that time is fleeting and must be used wisely. Every moment spent in unnecessary conflict is a moment lost from the pursuit of virtue, wisdom, and self-improvement. By choosing our battles carefully, we preserve our energy for what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and character. Furthermore, this idea connects to letting go of control. Many conflicts arise from the false belief that we can control how others think, feel, or behave. The Stoics remind us that this is an illusion. We cannot force others to see things our way, and trying to do so often leads to frustration. It is more powerful and more liberating to focus on our own responses and allow others to be as they are. Additionally, avoiding unnecessary battles supports emotional detachment and inner peace. When we refuse to engage in petty arguments or take offense at every slight, we maintain our mental clarity and emotional stability. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion." By choosing not to be disturbed by every challenge, we cultivate a calm and resilient mind. True strength lies not in fighting every battle, but in knowing which ones are worthy of our time and which are best met with silence and wisdom. 12. Memento mori. Remembering death brings clarity. Memento mori, remembering that death is inevitable, is one of the most powerful Stoic principles because it forces us to confront the reality of our limited time and prioritize what truly matters. The Stoics did not view death as something to fear, but as a guide for living with greater intention, presence, and clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." When we keep death in mind, we stop wasting time on trivial battles, unnecessary conflicts, and external validation. Instead, we turn our focus inward, choosing wisdom, virtue, and peace over fleeting distractions. This ties directly into the Stoic belief that not every battle is worth fighting. If life is short, why waste it on pointless arguments, grudges, or emotional turmoil? Recognizing the brevity of life encourages us to reserve our energy for what is meaningful. Memento mori also teaches us to let go of control and trust the process. We often struggle to dominate circumstances and people, believing we can shape life according to our desires. But death reminds us that we control very little beyond our own actions and mindset. We cannot dictate when or how we leave this world, but we can choose how we live each moment before that inevitable end. This aligns with the idea that expectations lead to discontent. If we expect permanence, security, or control over life's unfolding events, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Instead, the Stoic approach is to embrace impermanence and make peace with the flow of existence. Furthermore, Memento Mori clarifies that happiness is a choice, not a destination. Knowing that life is temporary, we realize that postponing joy for some future achievement is foolish. True contentment is found in the present, in appreciating what we have, and in living virtuously rather than chasing external rewards. By remembering our mortality, we gain the courage to let go of what does not serve us, forgive more easily, love more deeply, and live with greater purpose. Instead of fearing death, we use its certainty as motivation to become the best versions of ourselves, focusing only on what truly matters in the short time we are given. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and explore these timeless Stoic principles with me. Stoicism is not just a philosophy. It's a way of life, a guide to navigating challenges with wisdom, resilience, and inner peace. By embracing ideas like memento mori, letting go of control, choosing happiness in the present, and understanding that not every battle is worth fighting, we can cultivate a mindset that allows us to live with greater clarity and purpose. Life is short, and how we perceive and respond to it is entirely within our power. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to reflect on these teachings, apply them in your daily life, and continue seeking growth. If you found value in this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's spread wisdom and strengthen our inner selves together. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, stay mindful and stay strong.